And it took them an awful long time to decide to reboot the primary computer. I mean, when you got $1 billion mission on the line and you're not hearing from it because you told it to turn off the radio, which is what they did, which is also the first time in NASA history that any spacecraft has ever been told at the height of a key mission event, turn off the radio, don't talk to us.
Why did they do that?
Well, they claimed it was to prevent damage to a sensitive piece of equipment on board, because one of the events was going to be to fire explosive bolts to pressurize the retro-rocket system that would allow the spacecraft to be put into orbit around Mars. But we have been flying those kinds of equipment. They're called traveling wave tubes, or TWTs.
Right.
For 30 years. They're the heart of the radio system of spacecraft going back to Ranger and Surveyor and Lunar Orbiter. And no one had ever, even in the, quote, primitive days of spaceflight, ever said, turn off the radio to protect the TWTs. On this mission, for some reason, the mission rules said, turn off the traveling wave tube, which in essence made the radio go silent, and have the onboard computer turn it back on in about 15 minutes after this event. That guaranteed, Art, that the engineers on Earth, during that mysterious 15 minutes, would never get any data at all coming down on the radio.
I still don't understand what the fear was. Was it that the traveling wave tube would be damaged when the bolts went, or that it would cause the explosive to detonate once it was armed? Or
no,
what?
It was vibration. It was like the old-style vacuum tubes. If they're hot, if they're energized, they're more susceptible to damage during a vibratory event than if they're cold.
Right.
For those in the audience who may have at one time had an Atwater Kent or an old Zenith tube radio,
yes,
they'll know what we're talking about. You and I are not old enough to have those, all right? Except I do remember them from my childhood, and they were somewhat delicate.
Richard, I still have a tube radio in my closet.
Oh, but you don't turn it on. And you don't drop it when it's on.
No, you don't.
Okay. Anyway, that was the so-called fear, but it's kind of belied by the fact that we've been using this kind of technology for 30 years, and previous missions had been more primitive. I mean, the bolts and the shocks and the art of getting better at doing this stuff, when you begin, you're less good at something than when you are in the middle, right?
Sure.
So why, if this was a problem, with that more primitive version of these TWTs, didn't they have it then as opposed to now?